One of the interesting things about the Pokemon backlash is just how consistently against the brand Persona fans are. Like Persona fans right now are doing this thing where like, oh, Pokemon's cheap and lazy and uninspired, not like Persona, not like Atlas RPGs. And for that, I have to laugh my ass off because SMT reuses its assets all the time. Okay, anybody who's familiar with SMT at all would know that. Like, honestly, I don't even think Persona fans are aware that Persona is a spinoff of SMT. But like, again, the narrative for like the longest time has been that like Atlas is killing it with RPGs, that Persona 5 is this huge deal, it's this cultural phenomenon. Pokemon can't compete with it. And like Persona 5 came out in 2017. Okay. We have not gotten to Persona 6. We've got nothing but lazy spin-offs and some awful SMT games. Like, what has Atlas done since Persona 5? Meanwhile, you have Pokemon putting out like new games basically every year. They're killing it with their remakes, with their spin-off titles, with their next generation titles. Like Pokemon is just dominating Persona, and that's not even like really debatable. But the narrative has always been this idea that like, oh, Persona, it's so much more technically demanding. It's so much more of a mature story. It has way more going for it than Pokemon. And no, honestly, like Persona 5 is like what? Like it takes like what, 80 hours to get through the entire thing? Uh, the average Pokemon game lasts longer than that because you will be going around catching everything. You'll be training your Pokemon. You'll be battling other trainers. Like, usually, what happens is that you keep playing a Pokemon generation until the next one comes out. Okay. Pokemon is endlessly replayable. It has this perfect formula. It is so much fun. Like Persona 5 in comparison, it really hinges on this idea that it's a lot more mature and it's a lot more complex than it actually is. Because you keep seeing Persona fans do this thing where like, well, Persona is really well written, and being a novelist, someone who has played Persona 5, I can pretty explicitly tell you that that's not true. Persona introduces all these concepts, all these characters, all these ideas, and does nothing with them. It just kind of introduces them and then kind of like segues into this bullshit like high school anime fantasy where all the girls like line up to suck your dick. Like that is Persona 5. It's not mature. It's not like well written. It's not engaging. It doesn't do a whole lot with the characters. It doesn't tackle strong subjects. Like it is the most basic surface level thing imaginable. It really does come off like a 14-year-old wrote it. Like Pokemon it's really interesting in this way where you would think it's a lot more simplistic. It's basic, it doesn't have a lot going on, but in actuality it manages to get across like very strong emotions with very little. I think a really good example of this is like with Pokemon Legends EA, where you're hanging out with your bros and then like the old man dies at the end, and it's like some huge pivotal thing that kind of changes everything. Like this is a really emotional moment. It's really well handled. It was really well built up. Not only just in this game, but in the original X and Y, right? Like it was very very interesting to see what they did with that character and like how it all resolved and what it all amounted to. It was very very satisfying, and it was with comparatively little compared to like what Persona does, where Persona is just bloated, it's lazy, it's padded to fuck. Like 90% of your playtime is just walking around a city, like trying to advance your social links, which are all very basic and boring and don't really add a whole lot to the overall story or plot. Like the story or characters. Like it's a complete joke how Persona works. But the thing that gets me, the reason I'm making this video specifically, the reason that like objectively that Persona fans are full of shit when it comes to this notion, like the narrative is that Persona has higher production values. The idea that Persona is just like way better, the games look way better. They have more cinematics. They have full voice acting. They have all this stuff that makes it better than what Pokemon does. Like that is completely laughable. That is just completely wrong if you think about it, because you never see these people address the Persona spin-off games. Right. So they always want to like point to like the original release, like, oh man, look at how long this game is. Look how much content there is. Oh, like 100 hours. Oh, like they always do that thing. Like Persona 5, look at all these animations, bro. Like like they never want to talk about, spin-off titles like Strikers, like Tactica, which are like way lazier, which reuse assets, which are just like this huge step down in quality overall. Like it's interesting that they bitch, moan, and complain about Pokemon and its like release schedule, but with something like Persona, where they still don't have a Persona 6 and they get a bunch of lazy spin-off titles that no one plays or cares about, like it's such a huge double standard, and it really does need to be called out. And honestly, it feels like this is kind of at the heart of this anti-Pokemon sentiment at this point, is that like it's very specifically Persona fans who are running their mouths about Pokemon being lazy. And it really needs to be like called out and addressed that these people are delusional, that they're out of touch, that they need to play more RPGs, that Persona is not a real RPG. It is like basically a high school weeaboo, like uh visual novel dating sim. Like it is like a complete joke. The links people go to try and downplay Pokemon by hyping up like whatever slop like that they possibly can. And you see this a lot in the community. It's never another Nintendo game that they do this to, but it's always like something random like Expedition 33 or Baldur's Gate or this. And like the reality is like they're not competitive with Pokemon like at all. Like that's the really funny thing about this, is that Pokemon is just really really endlessly entertaining and fun, and like none of these brands are. Baldur's Gate's really interesting because like the narrative has always been that like this game is going to be played forever and it's going to be like the greatest thing I've ever made. And like the reality is, that came out in 2023. You know, it was outperformed by Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for one thing, but for another, like we're getting a new Pokemon generation this year. So not only were you outperformed by Pokemon the year it came out, we're also getting a new Pokemon game like 3 years later. Like again, this is why no RPG franchise can compete with Pokemon, because nothing can compete with its release schedule, and nothing can compete with like the end product once it actually comes out. You know, like people really underestimate like how high quality Pokemon actually is. Like they don't like to acknowledge that Pokemon's formula of having like shorter dev times, less resources spent, staying on a budget is very very effective for them. They don't want to acknowledge that, and instead they want to sit there and just like make all these like false comparisons, like, well, Persona 5 has waifus, so that makes it better. Like, no, it doesn't. Like, Persona 5 is a complete joke, and I'm very, 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 very tired of hearing about it. Like, it cannot and never will compete with Pokemon.